The twin suns of Zylvar Prime cast a golden glow over Ervos, their light reflecting off the city's towering spires and sleek structures. In the shadow of these monoliths, a transport pod descended silently into the city's core, its cargo unlike anything the Zylvarians had encountered. Inside the transport, High Overseer Krill Varrock stood with arms crossed, his insectoid frame looming over a containment field. Behind the shimmering barrier were a group of human children, their wide eyes scanning their surroundings with a mix of curiosity and fear. Krill's mandibles clicked as he observed them. "Fragile creatures," he muttered. Beside him, Science Officer Eric Tivar tapped at his data pad. Preliminary scans show remarkable neurological activity. Their brains are far more complex than anticipated. Krill's mandibles twitched. Intelligence doesn't make them a threat. Look at them. They barely look capable of standing upright, let alone resisting our forces. Eric's antennae quivered. Perhaps, but humans have a history of defying expectations. They're resourceful, even dangerous when cornered. Exaggerated rumors, Krill scoffed. These warriors of theirs are likely as unimpressive as these whelps. In the containment field, a boy no older than 10 stepped forward, his piercing green eyes locking onto Krill's. "Hey, where are we?" he demanded, his small hands clenched into fists. Krill tilted his head, intrigued despite himself. The boy's tone carried defiance, a spark of resistance that unsettled the overseer. Eric's mandibles spread in what passed for a grin among the Zylvarians. Fascinating. He's asserting dominance within his group. Observe how they're adapting to the situation. Krill ignored Eric's commentary. "You are aboard a Zylvarian transport, human. That is all you need to know." The boy didn't flinch. "You better let us go. My dad's a Marine. If he finds out you took me, he'll come for you. All of you." A ripple of unease passed through the other children, but the boy's unwavering tone bolstered their courage. Krill chittered a laugh. "Your father? A single human soldier? Against the might of the Zylvarian Empire? Laughable." The boy's gaze didn't waver. "Humans don't fight fair. And we don't stop until we win." Eric's antennae twitched nervously. "Overseer, perhaps we should consider." Krill waved a claw dismissively. "Enough, Eric. Empty threats from a frightened child. Initiate the transport sequence. Let's see if their resilience survives a full analysis." The hum of the containment field grew louder as the transport systems activated. The children huddled together, fear dimming their earlier bravado. The boy, however, stood firm, his gaze never leaving Krill's. As the pod descended into the heart of Ervos, a distress beacon blinked to life on a distant outpost. The message was short but carried critical urgency. "Priority alert, human juveniles captured by Zylvarian forces. Immediate action required." The transmission reached an isolated military base on the outskirts of the Sol system. In a dimly lit command room, a grizzled man in his 40s stared at the screen. Major Thomas Carter, United Earth Marines, froze momentarily. Then, with the precision of a seasoned soldier, he activated the comm system. "All units, this is Major Carter. Code Black. My son and others have been taken by Zylvarian forces. Scramble all personnel. We're bringing them home." Across the base, alarms blared as soldiers sprang into action. Lieutenant Ramirez approached Carter, her expression resolute. "Sir, intel confirms the transport's destination, Ervos." Thomas nodded. "Then that's where we're going. Prep the dropships." Ramirez. "Sir, make sure everyone understands, we're not coming back without those kids." On Ervos, the children were herded through the glowing corridors of a Zylvarian facility. The bioluminescent walls pulsed faintly, and the air carried an antiseptic tang. The boy observed everything, the layout, the guards, even the containment fields flickering. "What are you doing?" whispered a girl beside him. "Looking for weaknesses," he replied. "Weaknesses? Yeah. My dad says every system has a flaw. You just have to find it." In another chamber, Krill and Eric watched the children through monitors. Eric's excitement was palpable. They're adapting faster than expected. Look how they're strategizing. Krill's patience wore thin. "Enough. Begin the experiments. Let's test their resilience. The experiments started with puzzles, mazes, and endurance tests. Yet, the children thrived, working together in ways that baffled their captors. Eric's mandibles clicked. They're not just surviving. They're excelling. Krill's mandibles twitched. Increase the difficulty. As the tests intensified, malfunctions plagued the facility. Security systems glitched, containment fields flickered, and entire sections went dark. Krill barked orders. Find the cause. Unbeknownst to him, the boy had hacked into their systems with a stolen interface device, dismantling their control from within. On the approaching dropships, Major Carter rallied his team. Listen up. These bastards took our kids. That makes this personal. Hit them hard and fast. We don't stop until every last child is safe. Understood. Affirmative responses echoed as the dropships pierced Evos's atmosphere. Alarms blared across the facility as human forces descended like avenging angels. Krill stared at the monitors, stunned. What is the meaning of this? Eric's antennae quivered. The humans, Overseer. They're here. Krill's eyes narrowed. Prepare the defenses. Show them the might of the Zylvarian Empire. But deep down, he couldn't shake the boy's words. Humans don't fight fair. And we don't stop until we win. The human dropships descended through the dense atmosphere of Evos like steel arrows, their hulls reflecting the golden light of Zylvar Prime's twin suns. Inside one of the lead crafts, Major Thomas Carter stood in the cockpit, his eyes scanning the glowing metropolis below. A storm of determination brewed within him as he considered the lives at stake. The Zylvarian facility, a massive, fortress-like structure, rose from the city's core, surrounded by what appeared to be energy barriers and defensive turrets. Status report, Carter barked. Sir, enemy anti-air defenses have locked onto us, Lieutenant Ramirez replied, her voice steady despite the tension. Turrets are activating, but countermeasures are in place. We'll punch through. Thomas nodded, his eyes fixed on the target. Good. No distractions. Our mission is clear, retrieve the kids and get out. Anything that stands in our way is expendable. As the dropships approached the facility, the Zylvarian turrets opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, narrowly missing the human crafts as they dodged with precision, their searing heat and electric hum filling the atmosphere. Inside the facility, alarms blared as Overseer Krill Varric stormed into the control chamber, his mandibles clicking furiously. What is happening? He demanded, his multifaceted eyes scanning the chaos on the monitors. Human ships swarmed the sky, their movements unpredictable and relentless. Eric Tivar, frantically working at a console, looked up. The humans have launched a full-scale assault, Overseer. Their tactics are erratic but highly effective. They're already breaching the outer perimeter. Krill's eyes narrowed. Deploy all available units. I want those dropships destroyed before they reach the facility. Overseer, Eric hesitated. Their technology, it's more advanced than we anticipated. Their cloaking measures and counter-plasma systems are nullifying our defenses. Krill's claws slammed against the console. Then adapt. Find a weakness. These humans will not outsmart us. Deep within the facility, the human children huddled in a reinforced holding chamber, their whispered fears bouncing off the cold walls that seemed to press in on them. The air was thick with tension as they huddled together, their earlier defiance now tempered by the oppressive atmosphere. Yet the green-eyed boy, Jack, remained focused, his sharp gaze scanning the room for anything useful. They're coming, Jack whispered, his voice steady. Who? One of the younger children asked, tears welling in her eyes. Jack met her gaze. My dad. And when he gets here, we're getting out. The children exchanged uncertain glances, but Jack's confidence was infectious. He turned back to the interface device he'd hidden beneath his jacket, its stolen components slowly piecing together a way to override the room's security systems. Above ground, the first wave of human soldiers deployed from the dropships, their exosuits gleaming under the stark Zylvarian lights as they moved with lethal precision, weapons ready for the onslaught. Moving with practiced precision, they neutralized automated turrets and overwhelmed ground forces with coordinated strikes. Carter led the charge, his rifle humming with energy as he took down a squad of Zylvarian drones. "Ramirez, status," he called into his comms. "We're making progress, sir," she replied. "Our teams are clearing the perimeter. Resistance is heavier than expected, but nothing we can't handle." Carter grunted. "Good. Keep moving. The kids are the priority." Inside the control chamber, Eric's antennae twitched as he analyzed the human movements. Overseer, their leader, he's directing the attack with surgical precision. This isn't just an assault. It's a rescue mission. Krill's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Then we'll ensure they fail. Activate the internal defenses. Seal off the lower levels. They won't reach the children." "Sir, their leader, it's the father of one of the captives," Eric said, his voice tinged with unease. "The boy we observed earlier. This explains their relentless approach." Krill's eyes gleamed with malicious intent. "Interesting. Perhaps we can use that to our advantage." Meanwhile, Jack's stolen interface device beeped softly, a sound that sent a surge of hope through him. Yet, his hands trembled slightly as he worked, knowing a single mistake could mean disaster for them all. The boy grinned as he tapped the screen, bypassing the first layer of security on the containment chamber. A faint hiss echoed through the room as the locks began to disengage. "What are you doing?" a girl asked, her voice a mix of fear and hope. "Getting us out of here," Jack replied. "Stay close, and be ready to move when I say." The chamber doors slid open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. Jack led the group cautiously, his heart pounding as he navigated the unfamiliar terrain. His father's words echoed in his mind, "Every system has a flaw. You just have to find it." As they moved, the facility's automated defenses sprang to life. Turrets descended from the ceiling, their energy cannons charging. Jack's quick thinking saved them. He activated a maintenance hatch and ushered the group inside just as the first shots fired. The narrow crawlspace was dark and claustrophobic, but it provided a temporary sanctuary. Above, Carter's team breached the facility's main entrance. The halls were a maze of sleek corridors and glowing panels, but their advanced mapping systems kept them on track. Resistance intensified as Zylvarian soldiers engaged the humans in fierce firefights. Despite the chaos, Carter's focus remained unwavering. "We're getting close," Ramirez reported. "Thermal scans indicate the children are in the lower levels." "Then let's move," Carter replied. "No delays." In the control chamber, Krill watched the humans advance with mounting frustration. "They're unstoppable," Eric murmured, his tone almost admiring. Krill rounded on him. "They are pests. Nothing more. Deploy the heavy units. Crush them." As Zylvarian war mechs activated, Carter's team encountered their first real challenge. Towering machines with plasma cannons blocked their path, their armor impervious to standard weapons. Carter quickly adjusted his tactics. "Concentrate fire on the joints," he ordered. "We take out their mobility first." The soldiers responded with precision, targeting the mech's vulnerable points. Explosions lit the corridors as the machines fell one by one. Carter didn't wait for the dust to settle. "Keep moving. The kids are counting on us." In the lower levels, Jack and the children emerged from the crawlspace, their path blocked by a reinforced security door. Jack examined the control panel, his mind racing. He worked quickly, bypassing the lock with his stolen device. The door slid open just as Carter's voice crackled through the facility's comm system. "Jack, this is your dad. If you can hear me, hold on. We're coming for you." Jack's eyes widened. "Dad." The other children looked at him with renewed hope. "See, I told you he'd come," Jack said, his voice firm. But before they could move, a squad of Zylvarian soldiers appeared, their weapons trained on the group. Jack stepped in front of the others, his hands clenched into fists. "Don't move," one of the Zylvarians barked. Jack's mind raced. He needed to stall until his father arrived. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice steady. "Humans don't fight fair. And my dad's going to prove it." The Zylvarians hesitated, their confidence wavering. And in that moment, the sound of distant explosions grew louder. The cavalry was coming. The facility trembled as the human assault reached its peak. Explosions rocked the corridors, shaking walls as acrid smoke and the sharp tang of burning metal filled the air, scattering panicked Zylvarian defenders. Krill Varrock paced furiously in the control chamber, his claws scraping against the metallic floor. "Overseer, the humans have breached the lower levels," Eric Tevar reported, his voice trembling. "Their forces are advancing faster than we can contain them." Krill's mandibles twitched. "Seal all access points to the containment chambers. Deploy every remaining unit. They cannot be allowed to reach the juveniles." Eric hesitated. "Overseer, the humans' technology is surpassing our projections. Our defensive measures are enough," Krill bellowed, slamming a claw onto the console. "If you cannot outthink them, then overwhelm them. I want the humans crushed." As the Overseer barked orders, Major Carter and his team moved with relentless precision through the facility. The corridors were dimly lit, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows over debris and the motionless forms of fallen Zylvarian soldiers. Carter's voice came through the comms with calm authority. "Ramirez, report." "We're holding the central corridor, sir," Ramirez replied, the sound of gunfire punctuating her words. "But the resistance is getting heavier. They're throwing everything at us." "Good," Carter said. "That means they're desperate. Keep pushing. We're close." In the lower levels, Jack led the group of children cautiously through the maze-like facility, his heart pounding as he fought to suppress his fear while planning their next moves. The stolen interface device in his hand had become their lifeline, its glowing screen guiding them past security systems and locked doors. Each step forward felt like a victory, but Jack's heart raced with every sound of distant gunfire or approaching footsteps. "Are we going to make it?" a girl whispered, her voice trembling. Jack glanced back, forcing a reassuring smile. "Yeah. We're going to make it. My dad's here. I can feel it." A loud crash echoed nearby, and the group froze. Jack quickly ushered them into a side alcove, pressing them against the walls as a squad of Zylvarian soldiers marched past. The children held their breaths, their wide eyes locked on Jack as he listened intently. When the soldiers were out of earshot, Jack motioned for them to move again. Above them, Carter's team encountered their greatest obstacle yet. A massive Zylvarian war mech blocked the main corridor, its hulking frame bristling with weapons. The machine roared, its plasma cannons emitting a low, ominous hum that reverberated through the corridor. "Target the joints," Carter shouted, diving behind cover as the mech opened fire. His soldiers obeyed, their weapons focusing on the mecha's vulnerable points. Sparks and explosions erupted from its limbs, but the mech remained operational, its plasma shots carving through walls and barriers. "Sir, it's not going down," one soldier called out. Carter gritted his teeth. "Ramirez, do we have any heavy ordnance left?" "Just one charge, sir," Ramirez replied. "It'll take out the mech, but we'll need to get close to plant it." Carter nodded. "I'll do it. Cover me." Without waiting for an argument, Carter sprinted toward the mech, weaving through its hail of plasma fire. His soldiers provided suppressive fire, distracting the machine as he closed the distance. With a practiced motion, Carter attached the explosive charge to the mecha's central joint and dove away just as it detonated. The explosion ripped through the mech, sending it crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks and debris. "Path is clear," Carter said, pulling himself to his feet. "Move out." In the control chamber, Krill watched the monitors in disbelief. The humans were unstoppable, their determination unmatched by anything the Zylvarians had anticipated. Eric's voice broke through the silence. "Overseer, the children, they're escaping. The boy is overriding our systems faster than we can counter." Krill's mandibles clicked furiously. "Then stop him. Redirect all resources to their location. They will not leave this facility alive." In the lower levels, Jack and the children reached the final security checkpoint. A reinforced door stood between them and freedom. Jack's fingers flew across the interface device, his heart pounding as he bypassed the intricate security protocols. The door began to slide open, revealing a dimly lit tunnel that led to the surface. Before they could step through, a squad of Zylvarian soldiers appeared behind them, weapons raised. Jack stepped in front of the group, his body trembling but his gaze steady. "You're not going anywhere," one of the soldiers growled. Jack's mind raced. He needed to buy time. "You think you can stop us," he said, his voice louder than he expected. "My dad's coming, and you don't stand a chance against him." The soldiers hesitated, their confidence wavering. At that moment, a deafening explosion rocked the corridor, and Carter's team burst through the smoke, weapons blazing. The Zylvarian squad was caught off guard, their formation crumbling under the humans' assault. Carter's eyes locked on Jack, and for a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. "Jack," he shouted, relief flooding his voice. "Dad." Jack called back, a grin breaking across his face. The reunion was fleeting, the joy in Jack's eyes quickly replaced by fear as more Zylvarian reinforcements surged into the corridor. Carter pulled Jack into cover, his team forming a protective perimeter around the children. "We're not out of this yet," Carter said, reloading his rifle. "Ramirez, get these kids to the extraction point. I'll hold them off." "Sir, with all due respect." "No way," Ramirez replied. "We're all getting out of here." Carter smirked. "That's an order, Lieutenant. Now move." Reluctantly, Ramirez led the children down the tunnel, her team covering their retreat. Carter and a handful of soldiers held their ground, buying precious time as wave after wave of Zylvarian forces advanced. The corridor became a battlefield, the walls scorched with plasma burns and littered with debris. "You've done enough damage," Krill's voice boomed through the facility's speakers. "Surrender now, and your lives will be spared." Carter laughed grimly. "You don't know humans very well, do you?" The firefight intensified, but Carter's team held firm. In the tunnel ahead, the children and Ramirez reached the extraction point, where the dropships waited. Jack hesitated, looking back toward the sounds of battle. "Come on, Jack," Ramirez urged. "We need to go." Jack's fists clenched. "Not without my dad." Before Ramirez could respond, a distant explosion signaled the collapse of the main corridor. The Zylvarian forces had breached Carter's position. Jack's heart sank as he stared into the smoke-filled tunnel, hoping against hope that his father would emerge. The air was thick with smoke and burning metal, the roar of explosions and sharp cries of combatants driving the chaos as the battle reached its peak. Major Carter's team held their ground against the relentless Zylvarian reinforcements, the corridor echoing with the sharp staccato of gunfire and the hum of plasma bolts. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the Zylvarian forces struggled to gain an advantage, their confidence shattered by the humans' tenacity. "Sir, we're running low on ammo," Ramirez reported, her voice tight with urgency. Carter glanced at his dwindling team, his jaw set. "We'll hold. Just a little longer." Meanwhile, Jack and the other children crouched near the extraction point, their faces illuminated by the dropship's faint glow, a mix of fear and fragile hope reflecting in their eyes. The tension was palpable as the sounds of battle raged in the distance. "We can't just leave him," Jack said, his voice trembling but resolute. He turned to Ramirez. "We have to go back." Ramirez knelt down, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Your dad gave us an order. Our mission is to get you out safely." "But he's my dad," Jack insisted, his eyes glistening with tears. "He wouldn't leave me behind." Before Ramirez could respond, a deafening explosion shook the tunnel, debris cascading through the air as an eerie silence replaced the clamor of battle. For a moment, there was only silence, broken by the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the smoke-filled corridor. Carter emerged, blooded but unbroken, his rifle slung over his shoulder and a determined fire in his eyes. "Dad!" Jack shouted, rushing toward him. Carter dropped to one knee, pulling Jack into a fierce embrace. Jack clung to his father, tears streaming down his face, while Carter whispered, "I've got you now, kiddo. I told you I'd find you, kiddo." The reunion was brief as Carter's gaze shifted to Ramirez. "Status?" "Dropships are ready," she replied. "But we need to move now. Reinforcements will be on us any second." Carter nodded and stood, his hand resting on Jack's shoulder. "Let's get out of here." The group hurried toward the dropships, the children's expressions shifting from fear to hope as they boarded the crafts. Carter and Ramirez were the last to step inside, their weapons trained on the tunnel in case of pursuit. As the dropships lifted off, the Zylvarian facility began to collapse, explosions rippling through its structure as human forces detonated charges planted during their advance. From the cockpit, Carter watched as the fortress crumbled, a grim satisfaction settling over him. He turned to Ramirez. "Did we get everyone?" "All accounted for, sir," she confirmed. Carter exhaled, leaning back in his seat. "Good. Let's take them home." As the dropships exited Evos's atmosphere, Jack sat beside his father, his small hand clutching Carter's. "Dad. I was so scared," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Carter looked down at him, his expression softening. "It's okay to be scared, Jack. What matters is that you didn't let it stop you. You were brave, and I'm proud of you." Jack's eyes filled with tears, but he managed a smile. "I'm proud of you too." The sentiment lingered as the dropships rejoined the main fleet, a collective cheer erupting among the soldiers as news of the mission's success spread. Despite the toll of the battle, there was a shared sense of triumph and relief. Humanity had once again defied the odds, proving their resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. Back on Earth, the children were reunited with their families amid tearful embraces and words of gratitude. Carter stood to the side, watching the scene with a quiet satisfaction. Ramirez approached him, a rare smile on her face. "We did good, sir," she said. Carter nodded. "Yeah. We did." As the last child was reunited with their parents, Carter felt Jack tug at his sleeve. "Can we go home now?" Carter ruffled his son's hair, a rare smile breaking through his stoic exterior. "Yeah, buddy. Let's go home." With Jack by his side, Carter walked toward the waiting transport, the weight of the mission finally lifting. The stars above shimmered like distant beacons, reflecting the hard-fought journey of Carter and Jack, a reminder of humanity's unyielding will to protect and endure. No matter the odds, they would always fight for what mattered most.